Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is Blood and Vengeance Part 2, The Black Rail. This is a Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin playtest, Part 2 of a 3-part series that we are running right here on the Mini Terrain Domain Twitch channel. A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin was recently very successfully kickstarted from Absolute Tabletop, and I'm honored tonight to have two of the gentlemen from Absolute Tabletop, Tim and Barker, with us tonight. And in just a moment, we'll have them and everybody else introduce themselves and who they are going to be playing. A couple of quick housekeeping things. If you are watching with us on Twitch, you will notice that there is a glowing D20 down there just below me where it says A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin. And that is a domain die, and what those are is for every $5 donation or 500 bits on Twitch, they earn another domain die. And there's actually, if you type in, and I'm going to do this now in the chat, !, domain dice, there's a whole list of what the domain dice do. One die, the players can re-roll any D20 roll and take the new roll. For 2 domain dice, they can force me, the GM, to re-roll the dice. For 3, they can do out of rest healing with hit dice. For 4, you can turn a death saving throw fail into a success. But if you critically fail that, it takes 8 domain dice to turn that into a success. And finally, for 5 domain dice, we call it the Patron's Blessing. You can turn any successful hit into a super crit, which is automatic double max damage. Speaking of crits, the way we do critical hits here on Mini Terrain Domain, if you roll a natural 20, that is an automatic max damage. Then roll your damage dice one more time. Potions, if you got them. This is Dragongrin, so nobody's probably got potions. But if you got them, potions are a bonus action to quaff. And spell scrolls, I'm not even going to worry about because there's none of those here. I think that about does it for my house rules. We are going to try to keep this to a little over a 2-hour game. Last time we ran about 3, but we also started on time. I had some technical difficulties, but also, if you want to catch up on this, if you're not entirely sure what's going on with part 2, the 3 parts are loosely connected. Part 1 is available on youtube.com/Mini Terrain Domain. Oh yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to say. Today, January 30th, 2019, Mini Terrain Domain has just reached its 9,000th subscriber. And those of you who have been following along will know that I've been saying something's going to happen at 9,000 subscribers. I would now announce the 10,000 subscriber push giveaway that I will be doing. I'm going to announce it casually here, officially within the next couple weeks, because I have to get everything together and photograph it so you know I'm not BSing you. But we're going to be doing a giveaway, and there are going to be 3 prize levels. First, second, and third place are all going to receive the following items: a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition starter set, and Icons of the Realm starter set miniatures that match up with the pre-gens, 6 sets of polyhedral dice, that's in addition to the dice that go inside the starter set, and then the grand prize recipient is going to receive all of that, plus a Dungeon Master's Guide, a Monster Manual, a Player's Handbook, and a Dungeon Master screen. All of that will be up for grabs through a raffle drawing run through Gleam coming in the very near future. And it's just a push to help drive the channel up to 10,000 subscribers. It's a kind of a mini landmark goal for a channel I've had going for quite a while, and I'm really excited about it. And it's because of videos like this and because of people like you in the audience who tune in all the time. So if you want to help drive us even closer, head over there if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button. You can also follow us here on Twitch. Up somewhere along the top here should be a little heart icon. Or you can even use a subscription. If you have an Amazon Prime account, link it to your Twitch account, and you get 1 free subscription every month. Why not use it for Mini Terrain Domain? Which, by the way, new subscriptions earn domain dice for the players. Barker, I forgot to have the guys do this last week. Roll me a d4.
Great. I'm going to roll it down the chimney of Ellington Estate.
This is going to determine, that's exciting. This is going to determine how many purple worms you face. Just kidding.
Great. Come on, big 0. 3 purple worms.
1, 2, 3. You guys now have 4 domain dice to use during this game. I think you guys had 2 in the last session, and you burned 1 of those. And they do carry from session to session. So you have 4 at your disposal. Real quick, let's go around the overlay here. Introduce yourself and tell us who you are going to be playing tonight. And we're going to start over on this side here with Mr. Barker.
Hey everybody, my name is Mr. Barker. I am your geography teacher this semester, and I am today playing Tawny, who is a Darrow, that's my heritage, rogue of the Silverwise culture, who is sort of on the run. I'm really excited actually to play in this game for a few reasons. Namely, I don't think I've ever played with either Connor or Baron. Am I wrong? I don't think ever. So that's cool. Playing with new people is always fun. And it's strange, and Tim can verify, being on this side of the laptop when it comes to writing a Dead Man's Guide or reading a Dead Man's Guide, it's now kind of like, oh, cool. Now we get to see if, let's just, make sure it works. Now, clearly you've already play tested so much of it and so much of it works. And clearly that we've rolled some dice ourselves, but I think this is my first time since Those That Remain really diving into a play test in Dragongrin, and I'm really excited to do it. So thanks for hosting us.
Awesome. And Baron.
What's up, everybody? I'm Baron, YouTube channel RWD Gaming. I am getting to reprise my role as the human fighter of the Sarek culture, and hopefully I'm useful at some point. So let my fighting stand out amongst the fighters.
And then we're going to flip over to Connor.
Hey, I'm Connor. I am half a dice on ice. I'm playing as Winfield Palefinger, a person who was once a human but now is a undead monstrosity known as a Sarek or Sarek. Unsure of how it's pronounced, but it's okay. Unintentional plug. I helped write this book. You can find it on Direct RPG. It's a nice, book. Anyways,
what's it called?
Oh, the book. For those of you who can't read, is called Cryfoth. Yeah, there you go. Have fun.
It's really cool, like brutal world setting that you should check out.
Yeah.
And finally, Tim.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tim. Hip hop made me. And this is the culture. No, I'm just, I am part of Absolute Tabletop, and we're really excited as Barker. I think we have so much going at once to create this book that it's really cool to use it. That's our whole mantra, is that we make what we'd use. And so these little play tests are already putting so many ideas in our heads that wouldn't have come from, like you mentioned, Barker, just sitting on that side of the laptop. There's something that happens when you play where you're like, oh, it'd be cool. This thing that's happening right now in the game, let's make it a thing. And so I am playing our race of constructs called a Tome Heart. And so we're really excited about how that particular heritage works, because they are awakened constructs. And so there's actually this little roll table to choose your construction, which give you like cool little features, as well as your augmentation, which is sort of, I don't know, I just think it's a neat way. And I did my character creation randomly to stress test this. And so far, it feels really neat. So I'm very excited to stress test the mechanics, but thank you, Jake. This is a really cool experience.
Well, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be able to do this. I've long been a fan of Absolute Tabletop. I've play tested many of your guys' materials and used various games, supplements, modules, and whatnot over the years to run my own games. So, as I said, I'm very excited to be able to run this. A word on the playtest. Now, we didn't run into this too much last week, but because it is a playtest, there is the possibility that you may see a little bit more of a likelihood that we might have a disruption in the role play to just check how something's functioning if something seems off. The players, as Tim kind of touched on, they're each kind of stress testing these character builds, and I'm focusing on just using the lore and materials provided to build my Dragongrin the way I see things. And I will be also stress testing some. I'm not really stress testing so much this week. I'm more playing them out of the box. But I'm using some new stat blocks for some official enemies, or, well, I guess it depends on your perspective. They're not necessarily enemies or monsters, but some new stat blocks for some really cool entities within the Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin. And if you could see what I'm looking at right now, you'd be as excited as I am. The only thing missing is having the physical book in front of me, because I like to run with books, to be able to flip through the pages and have my post-it notes stuck in there. But I'm really excited about this. So, with that said, we are going to jump into part 2 of Blood and Vengeance, the Black Rail. In the previous session, only one player character was in that. That being Chesser. Chesser and his cleric companion, Brom, barely escaped with their lives after a brutal Thoughtslayer attack on the hidden settlements of Cage's Reprieve, a series of settlements found within a cavern system hidden behind a waterfall, and the settlement of the sluice, which was located next to a sluice gate that controlled the flow of the river from the sphere below. That sluice gate was compromised, and several Thoughtslayers of varying sizes came in and just decimated everyone. The warlock was slaughtered. The warlock became a thought spawn of these creatures under complete control of them. Though nobody saw his death, the small bard Vadami was slaughtered and brain drained by a mind driller. And Brom himself, fighting alongside Kiaria Jin, a hero of the Lightfall, nearly lost his life. And apparently Siri thought I was talking to her with that. Kiaria, along with, there was a tiefling woman whose name is completely escaping me at the moment, but it doesn't matter because you guys did not choose to go with her. She was trying to get you guys to follow her on a quest to receive a relic that could be used against the Lord of Ash of this region of Sphere, Caius Vecus. Kiaria mentioned that rumors had said that Caius Vecus was leaving the Ardent Scar. Supposedly, their intel said that his niece was sick and that he was actually attending to her, leaving the Ardent Scar. So Kiaria wants to take the Black Rail down through the mountains to meet up with Gwendolyn Greybone and the Greybone Rebels to stage an assault against the Ardent Scar. We join the adventures just as Chesser is helping Kiaria to load or to help Brom shamble through. Brom is has been severely wounded, had managed to get healed back up and took care of some of his own healing, but he's still clutching at his side, Chesser, as you and Kiaria are running through this narrow, through one of the agricultural tunnels. You escaped through this, literally through what looked like stone. You went through the illusion and disappeared into the tunnels. And now you find yourself scrambling. You can hear Brahm's heavy breathing, catching in his side as you make your way through this tunnel. And after a very long time, it seems, you break through into an opening, but it's dark, very dim, bioluminescent fungi in pale shades of blue and violet are casting a ghostly pallor around this cavern, giving you just the faint hint of what its size is. And as you emerge into this area, Kiaria makes a small, I can't do it, small whistling sound, just a real faint whistle sound. That seems to echo around the cavern. And you watch, Chesser, as all around about a dozen small lights illuminate. Flares, or rather small torches, or hooded lanterns, providing your first sense that there are several people within this cavern. And you can just make out some of the light reflecting off of several hulking masses of metal nearby in the cavern. Chesser, you tell me, have you ever, in the service you have done, have you ever seen or ridden on the Black Rail?
Well, you see, I can't exactly tell you that, to be honest. Well, at least not for sure. There are memories in my head that aren't mine. Soldiers I've killed, the spells I've stolen. I'm aware of it. I think I've been on it. But I couldn't tell you what happened.
So it doesn't seem completely foreign to you that this, you can kind of guess at, whether through your own recollection or stolen memories, you kind of, your mind fills in the gaps of what this could be. Amongst the crowd of people waiting for Kiaria to return, in the hoping that she would return, there's at least two figures within this crowd. Winfield, what is your place here? Why are you here? And what are you doing?
I feel like Winfield, because he's so canny with the surrounding environment. He's agile, swift, keen, has a good eye and a good ear. He actually helps manage the Black Rail, getting to where it needs to go, making sure that avenues are safe, or even diverting threats, or even clearing them out, but mostly diverting them. And so he's kind of part scout, part lookout, part, dealer of justice, as well as, just the conductor.
So you're actually something, we'll say, you're a part of a group of rangers that are also called the Riggers. And you ride the rails on these small, they can barely be called a car. They have just enough to hang on to the rails, and they actually cling. They have the ability to cling to one or the other rail in the event that, as sometimes happens in your work, you find that sections of the Black Rail are completely destroyed or missing, and you need to be able to, you need to be alert to be able to pull the lever that will release the hold on one side and flip around to the other. So you have a familiarity with the black rail, and that it's not just a single track that runs through the mountains from high to low, but rather a series of tracks, some of which delve deep into the sphere below, some of which do flow from the high mountains down to the low foothills, but all of which, whether inside the caverns like this one or out in the open air, all are dangerous. Also among this group, this band of a dozen of Kiaria's troops stands, is it Aegis or Aegis?
Aegis.
Aegis. Who is Aegis? What is Aegis's place here?
Aegis has a little bit of renown for being a Silverwise gladiator. So, you know, the Silverwise travel in caravans, and they are a very close-knit community. And Aegis is a tome heart. So this construct who is awakened, and one of the things that Aegis will do is fight whatever the Silverwise managed to trap or find, different creatures, monsters, hulking undead. He's a bit of a pit fighter, gladiator, and he does that because it's one of the only things he can do to contribute to the community. And so that's what he does, is he'll fight for their entertainment. And so lately, though, as he grows, as he's beginning to realize, you know, this awakened tome heart begins to feel these emotions, he's feeling the pull toward helping, not just being a construct that fights for entertainment, but maybe fighting for something more.
And probably the first thing that gave you this pull was Kiaria Jin. She saw in you as a tome heart, from all these monsters that you were fighting and all this experience you were gaining in the arena, not just somebody that was providing entertainment, but in a way, she specifically would have called you an archaeologist or a zoologist. Because you, by fighting this huge variety of monsters, pulled some from the desolation itself, some from the bleak, some from the valleys and draws of sphere. With each monster you fight, you learn something new. You are cataloging these creatures' attacks. You are cataloging how they attack, how they react when cornered. And you've been learning. And Kiaria sees great value in that, because you can aid in the efforts by being adaptable and recognizing threats amongst whatever you might encounter. You're all gathered here, and this all kind of happens within a few moments as Chesser and Kiaria and Brahm show up. And Kiaria says, "This was all I could bring. We had no way knowing what was happening. It was a slaughter, and I fear that Cage's reprieve may have been lost in its entirety. At the very least, it has been decimated. Thought Slayers. I know not many of you have had to deal with them, but these are some of the most vicious I have ever seen. In just the space of less than 5 minutes, we saw hundreds cut to ribbons, and even more turned into thought spawn. I fear any chance pulling resources from Cage's reprieve has been lost today. But I've pulled these two. Brave fighters. I fought alongside them. against one of the Thought Slayer mind drills. We survived. We must make no haste. Winfield, see to the locomotion. We need to get this vehicle moving. It's going to take us some time to get down through the caves, out into the open, down to where we will meet up with Gwendolyn, her rebels.
He nods. Aye. And gets to work on the levers and kind of like kicking the wheel to make sure it's in line.
All right, you have the since you've declared yourself having the since you are a rigger and you know how this thing works, what does it look and sound like as this locomotive on the black rail is prepared and brought to life?
If it weren't for great efforts into having it concealed, it would be this loud, rusty, clangy, creaky abomination. But the use of animal greases and various paints and even like grease on the outside of it, it is pitch black. Its wheels are completely silent, except for maybe at the scratchings of a rubble or dirt upon the rail itself. It's this long, multi-carted thing, each attached in a system that can detach and whatever as we please. And it has many vantage points, both for looking outwards and to escape in times of need.
Is this thing powered rather by mundane technological means, or by arcane means, or by imminent means?
I have a feeling that it's because of the low resource war we're waging. It's probably very mechanical. We got a lot of levers going on that needs to be pumped by people moving it. And that's why it takes so much efforts into keeping it silent. It's because two people are always going to be, occupied.
Give me an intelligence check.
Nice. That's a 14.
You have become very well learned in the mechanical operation of the Black Rail and of this locomotive. But you also know there are several series of valves, levers, and even runes, many of which are inlaid with copper, that you just don't know what they do. And you suspect that it may be something dormant, something that hasn't been awakened yet, or just simply a relic of a time long gone. But nonetheless, it functions the way you and the other riggers have made them function through, as you said, these mechanical means. There's a little bit of a quiet but echoes within the cavern. All of you hear and feel this sort of lurch and this sort of a as you ease up on the primary brakes, and the weight of the cars behind sort of shift against their couplings. Within the cars, there are a couple of cars that are outfitted specifically like passenger cars. There is a car that is outfitted with several crates and weapons racks, loaded with spears, shields, crossbows, swords. One of you, Tawny, there is a noticeable sudden lurch and clanging of loose swords in their racks, the wooden spears clattering together. Describe for us, as this lurch happens and we suddenly see inside this car from your perspective, who do we see there, and what's going through your mind? And real quick, before you do that, give me a perception check.
That would be a 6 total.
All right, continue. You heard nothing of the discussion outside.
You see a set of eyes, one silver, one blue, trying to peek out a small opening in the car. Scared by somewhat frightened by the clattering of spears and swords, Tawny turns around and looks down at his pup, hair as bright shock silver as his eye, and kind of pats the silver-wise hound. There. Looks back out, sees that there's movement, tucks back into where he is in this dark area underneath a shelf behind some weapons and armor, out of view of anyone who might traverse the car, either going forward or backward. But he feels the lurch, he hears the engineering, hears those pumps, and just closes his eyes and secretly hopes he's going in the right direction.
Kiaria calls out to the rest of you. All right, mount up. We've got a bit of a ride. Settle in. You guys know the routine. If you're sitting in the car, keep your eyes peeled. We don't know what is roaming through these caverns that may be attracted. Winfield and the other riggers have done a good job of keeping this thing so that it's mostly silent running. But that's not enough to deter some of these creatures. Aegis, keep your eyes, your ears peeled. Aegis, I'm going to need you, when we clear the caverns, I'm going to need you to head up top. He turns to you, Chesser. Get him inside. He doesn't look well. Talking to you about Brahm.
Seeing that his side is still ailing him, I've hoisted him up on one of my shoulders. Not hoisted, but propping him up, if you will. He'll be all right, Brahm. Just something we'll be able to get fixed up. Let's get on the train.
So you all get yourself into the car and you get settled in. Up in the locomotive, another rigger, another ranger comes up alongside you, Winfield. A skinny, young, 19-year-old, very dirty human girl. Her name is, she just goes by the name Copper. And she looks over at you and she takes up her position on the other side of levers, ready to release, and you begin basically in this sort of tandem operation of this thing, working the levers and everything, so that it's kind of like, without getting too much into the mechanics of it, you're not having to actually like pedal the bike in this thing. You're pushing the pedals that are turning bigger pulleys and gears, or series of steam and compression and whatever else it is that makes this thing move much smoother. But there is a sort of like a rhythmic sort of almost like a rowing with these levers, and they're spaced far enough apart that it takes the two of you. And despite her skinny size, Copper is quite wiry and up to the task. As we move away from the from you and Copper, we head back through the car. We see Chesser helping Brahm down into one of the seats. Daria moves over to talk to a couple of the other soldiers that are along the way. A real ragtag group of fighters, using mostly found armor bits. Here and there, you might even see elements of a single pauldron made up of Titan copper, a single greave, where whatever they've somehow managed to find, whether it's infused with any kind of power or not, you know that anybody who has hold of Titan copper they view it almost like a holy relic, as a thing that there's this sort of superstition amongst fighters, amongst warriors, that this is a thing that grants an extra bit of hope within Dragongrin, within Sphere. And real quick, Tim, do you by any chance have Brahm's stats handy?
I do. Yeah, hang on. I can pull them up.
Because I'm actually going to have you make a couple rolls for Brahm real quick.
Yeah, I can do that. And
he's technically a NPC.
Yeah. And I also have the same character sheet, including hit points and spell slots and everything from when we stopped playing, so it worked out.
Perfect. What was his hit points at?
Do you want to know?
Yeah, I do.
2.
Okay, because I remember he had gotten healed up and he'd gotten hurting. He'd gotten hurting in that fight. He got hurting.
Hurting for certain.
He got hurting, Bert.
Tell me, because, just tell me about Tome Hearts. Do Tome Hearts have any extra sense abilities?
So, in what way? Like magical sense or anything like that?
Anything that heightens the 5 senses.
No.
I've actually never played a Tome Heart. I didn't get a chance to look in close on those.
Yeah, they do not.
Okay, just curious about that.
Sure.
Chesser and Tawny, make me perception checks. And if you have any features, actually, Tawny, I want you to make one for your hound at advantage.
Total of 16.
Okay.
The hound got a natural 20.
How'd Tawny do?
Tawny is notoriously not perceptive.
And your senses are a little muddled with the smell of the oils and leather and all that, of all the supplies that are surrounding you. Somewhere in one of these boxes there's provisions as well. You can smell maybe the food, but give me an insight check as I'm sorry, what was the hound's name?
Tobias.
Nice. I see what you did there. You just swapped the two, didn't you?
I just realized I needed a name for the hound. So.
Oh, okay. So Tobias, the hound, seems a little agitated. Give me an insight check to see if you can, if Tawny has any sense of why Tobias is agitated.
$15 total. What's wrong, girl?
All right. As we'll get to the results of those, what those mean in just a moment. Aegis, describe for us, what it feels like as this ancient locomotive, begins moving partially under the rigger's work and partially under the slight downward trend as you're moving through darkened caverns, twisting, turning. And I'm going to add to Connor's wonderful description of the Black Rail and say that not only this isn't just a traditional train that sits on rails, it actually has where the rather than wheels, they're kind of like clamps on the rails. If you've watched Solo, I want you to totally picture the grav train that they pull the heist on at the beginning of Solo, or near the beginning of Solo. So what did Aegis describe it in from your perspective and just in general? What is it like on this Black Rail?
It's strange to perceive darkness. Yeah, where once there was no differentiation. It's interesting to to us as human beings, even if you've ever had somebody tell you, now you're manually breathing, and then you can't stop thinking about how you're breathing. It's pockets of that where it, to a tome heart, when a train would shift before, that simply just meant, correction, correction, move, shift, weight automatically. But now I'm manually breathing. And so as this black rail sort of skids along these, arcanic tracks, I would say I would falter and stumble, which is strange for me. And I fall to one knee and look up, because for a moment I don't realize exactly what happened, but then I do. And then, of course, I fell. And then I stand up and slowly start to shift my weight around, occasionally crushing a piece of the train by gripping it a little too tightly. Not understanding my own strength. And I wish I understood smell better.
Excellent. So speaking of smell, Tawny, you don't know where, how, or why, but Tobias, the Silverwise Hound, only gets this agitated when he smells blood. Chesser, you only smell this because you're in such close proximity. You smell that coppery tinge of blood in the air as you look at your companion, Brahm, who has grown quite pale. And you see that where he's holding his side, you see now where the Thought Slayer's almost metal-like armor of its spiked foreclaws pierced through the armor and into his side. And you can see the armor was concealing the blood that was seeping downward. But now that he's sitting, it's seeping out through the cracks in his armor into the seat. What do you do?
Brom, you're bleeding on. Brom, like shaking him.
He's not answering. As you say this, Kiara comes up next to you and says, "Everything all right?"
No, something's wrong. Quick, we need help. We need help now.
She looks down, and all of a sudden, she sees the blood. And she, with one hand, pushes you, Chesser, slightly back, grabs a hold of Brahms, kind of up around the collar of the armor, and pulls him to his feet. He doesn't resist as he's on the verge of losing consciousness. She picks him up, and she starts yelling, "Didn't know. I should have known if he was bleeding." And you see some of the others around, and Aegis, as you hear this about the bleeding, you know why it is not a good thing for somebody here in the caverns of Sphere to be bleeding profusely like this. And the reason for this is everybody around here knows that the Lord of Ash, Caius Vecus, not just a simple Lord of Ash. He is a vampire lord. And there are many within this region that are his spawn. Occasionally, those spawn fail upon their deaths to return to their resting places. And they roam the caverns and the valleys, the draws of the sphere, as vampiric mists, drawn to the scent of blood. Upon hearing that this man is bleeding from your commander, Kiara, what do you do, Aegis?
I would attempt to follow my commander's orders. So whatever I feel I could compute. So can I roll to essentially see how I compute her response? Because I'm not great at understanding human emotion and subtext and subtlety.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to read the situation. So let me know what kind of roll you'd want.
It's going to be an insight check.
Okay.
While he's doing that, Winfield, give me a perception check as you are. There's really not much else to do while you're moving these levers and a couple foot pedals than to look out the side windows and slight front windows.
That is going to be, oh my god, a 26 perception.
All right, I'll tell you what that means in a moment. Aegis, you know from the tone of voice of your commander and the mention of blood that, and the way that she's holding him, she wants to get rid of him. This is a thing that is attracting even worse things. Get it out of here. As she hauls Brom to his feet and kind of against his will, as he's more or less just hanging there. She's a half elf, but she's a brute. As you already saw in combat, she's fully armored. She's a champion of the Lightfall that wielded a greatsword. So a nearly unconscious person is no problem for her. So hold on, I apologize. There's some kind of emergency alert coming across my phone. And it's dumb.
It's not because
Nope.
there's a day after tomorrow level wind chill coming in and everyone's freezing instantaneously.
No, I mean, we're just about there. Baron and I are in Michigan where we're having, for us, it's unusual, these minus 25, minus 35 wind chills. There was a fire at a fuel gas depot. And so to conserve energy, they're asking people in Michigan to turn down their thermostats. I thought it could be something serious. My phone was not shutting up. I apologize for that. Real life invading Dragongrin. And so, as this flammable gas makes its way... No, I'm just kidding. As you enter Varnholm and the Frozen King... Nope, sorry, wrong adventure. Chessex. Nope. Jeez. Chesser. Good Lord.
Oh my.
I'm derailed, which means I'm derailing this freaking train, okay?
Oh, how much?
Everybody roll decks. Everybody, no. Chesser, Kiara has just grabbed your friend and is cussing and moving with him, not in a way that says, let's help this man. Aegis, are you moving to assist, or what are you doing?
I am. I'm moving to assist. And so, you can intervene DM-wise at any point, but Aegis understands that he needs to help Brom. And so he goes over and with his, preternatural strength, hoists Brom up and attempts to throw him out the window of the train very calmly and casually as though he's, taking a sip of water.
Chesser, you see this hulking Tomeheart move towards Kiara and unceremoniously actually wrinkling the armor as if it were cloth as he grabs the back of Brom's armor and sort of picks him up and begins to turn. Are you doing anything in response to this?
You're gonna help. What are you doing? No, I'm not stopping him from throwing the body at the moment.
Kiara holds a hand out to you. This man is bleeding. You need to clean that mess up now. Head to, and she points towards the other area. She says, and then she points to another one of the soldiers. Go into the supply car. We need vinegar. This blood has got to be diluted and eliminated now. And Aegis is turning with Brahm and moving toward the open door by the coupling.
Yeah, and there's a moment where Brahm's head is partially out the window and the wind is blowing it like you just got him. And then as though he were putting the glass of water down, he just heads towards the car like, oh, okay.
As you're just standing there in that moment, before you do anything else, Aegis, you notice what looks like, well, quite frankly, if you look behind me, it looks like a little bit of spark and smoke. Like, as Barker said earlier, it looks like somebody just ripped a fat cloud. As, as
Jake Nash.
a mist begins to billow in through the window. And this mist seems to, despite the movement of the train car, it begins to move around Brahm, around his head. And I would like to have you roll a Constitution saving throw for Brahm.
Can do. Oh boy. That's a 3 on the die. And luckily I'm proficient, so that's a 5 all the way up.
So that is definitely going to be a fail. As the mist begins to curl around Brahm, it sort of almost becomes inhaled by Brahm at the same time. He seems to be almost deflating. You can see the veins start to rise in his skin. And this mist begins to take on a reddish tint. Kiara begins yelling at you, "Get him out of here! Before it gets the rest of us!" And she grabs you, Chesser, pushes you towards the other door. "Get the vinegar now!" And Tawny, you can hear Tobias is getting agitated. And you can now hear commotion coming from the other train car. It's a bit muffled, but you do hear the words, "Get to the supply car."
Tawny is in the middle of having an argument, very one-sided, with the Hound, Toby, and say, there's no reason we need to go. Blood means death here. Blood doesn't mean we can help anybody. And then he hears the commotion. I don't know how I've lived this long with you. And then he moves aside. Tobias kind of starts running out of the cart. He opens the door and they both kind of start moving upward. I imagine there's like a staircase right as they open or a ladder that they can climb, that he can climb, and the dog also has opposable thumbs. No, that he can haul the Hound up and climb his way up to the top.
So you're gonna climb to the roof of the train.
That's no, I imagine that it was like I was in a bottom supply area and that like above me was like in the center, but whatever.
Oh, no, that works the way the supply car, so kind of like you want to get up on some top shelves.
No, I want to get where everyone else is. And so if I'm opening the door, do I just have to run through?
Oh, you want to go where the rest of the troops are?
Yes, the dog has convinced me to go where the blood is.
Oh, then yeah, I mean, you're on a train, so picture it just like, Red Dead Redemption. You're moving from car to car, You literally just have to open a door. Chesser, are you making a move to go do what she said and get the...
So
the
in
vinegar?
my mind, there's like a scene that plays out where Aegis throws the body, and as she's pushing me away, and
Yeah, and it's absolutely as she grabs you, that's where Aegis just like throwing out the trash, just pushes Brahm's body out.
And I'm gonna do everything in my power to try and slam Aegis into the wall of this cart, just screaming at him.
Excellent. This is going to be an opposed strength check. You can use athletics if you'd like.
Can I say narratively that after Aegis threw Brahm out the window, you guys are going to think about this one later. You could hear him scream as he woke up from the cold, but that was it. It was just that sort of Doppler effect scream. That sort of like.
No, we just insert the Wilhelm scream here.
Aegis,
now this is
Aegis. Do you have dark vision?
You know what? That's a good thing to know about Tome Hearts. Let's see.
You have like Predator.
So
actually, that would be good to know too. If you have thermal vision, that changes things a lot.
I currently do not have dark vision.
Okay, so yeah, you absolutely hear that sort of Doppler kind of as there is that moment of being vampire mist killed is only slightly less than being hurled from a moving train in the darkness on Brahm's level of fears and horrible ways to die.
He was such a good guy. He only helped people.
And he helped one final time.
Yeah, okay. I got a total of 23.
Was there something else that Aegis was doing, Tim?
No, just being pushed. Well, he would also follow, attempting to get the vinegar until that red cloud began to basically threaten everyone. Then it was like, whew. So that opposed strength check. Oh man, listen, you're in really good shape because I have super high strength, but I just rolled a 2 on the die. And so, so Jake, if you'll let me, I would use probably my athletics to oppose it, or is it just straight strength?
No, I said you could use athletics if you want.
Okay, cool. So that's a 9 total.
All right. First, Chesser, tell me what happens and how you throw Aegis up against the edge of the door. And just as he's done with that, Tawny, tell me what it's like when you and Tobias come through the door as that scene is playing out.
So I actually was going to ask you, that next car that we just are going into is the one where this is happening, where Brahm is being thrown off. Okay, great. Tawny has survived this long by hiding, not by being brave. But the thing is, Tobias would have gone anyway. And so Tawny really needs to protect the hound. As we break through the door, there's going to be a stunned silence. And Tawny just kind of stands there, backs up a little bit, realizes there's no shadow to sneak into, to back into, to drown in. Stands up a little bit taller, and then lays eyes on Aegis. What is Aegis doing right now? Walking away, or
no? At this exact moment, as you were coming through the door, this is where Chesser, I want you to tell me how you throw Aegis up against the door and what you're saying to him. We're doing.
Gotcha. So, Kiara has like my arm to push me, and I kind of like rip away from her, and I am charging forward. Aegis, are you wearing any like clothes, or are you just like got like a metal chassis for a body?
It's more like a metal chassis.
Okay, so I almost picture like the framework of what would be maybe your collarbones or clavicle area. I'm like grabbing that and like using that to shove you top heavy into like the wall behind you, so you're kind of at an angle, and I'm just like screaming in your face, no words, but I almost feel you said you are like arcanely awakened, correct?
Yes. So just quick talking about playtest asides. The tome hearts are very, very old. They are from an era before current Dragongrin, but they were mobilized as a last resort to try to fight the bad guys. And then it failed. But when they were essentially like, okay, let's turn them all back off, they wouldn't. They wouldn't go back off. Some of them continue to do their tasks as they were programmed, ages ago. But some of them, such as Aegis, awakened. And even though they are very ancient, they are new to being awakened, if any of that makes sense.
Okay. I almost feel like there's like maybe wisps of like arcane energy, maybe coming from like the mouth equivalent, or just that your head in general, as I'm unintentionally trying to siphon magic from you, regardless of if you have a spell slot or not. That's kind of irrelevant. Just the height of the emotional response here. I'm just very, very upset.
Yeah, and that tracks. And one of the things that about the Sarek and how they have to eat magic to survive, we are leaning more heavily into making it a narrative thing, because some people brought up that in a game where people aren't having to track their own food or water, it doesn't seem fair to make one person eat their own spells. And
True.
so making it a variant rule, but that is actually the perfect way to narratively pull in the idea, is that as this imminence magic that's fueling the tome hearts is sort of sparked as you push me against the wall, you could feed off of that. That's the cool role play moment we wanted to make.
That's a good question. Is it more of an imminence thing rather than like natural arcane?
So the tome hearts are said to be powered by imminence magic, but prove that.
Well, perhaps maybe there's like scorch marks on like the area around my mouth where I'm like draining this area for like
I love it.
Just the intensity of the energy I'm drawing from.
Love that.
Like a frostbite.
Nice.
Which I
literally drawing from real life experience right now.
Yes.
All right. Are you saying anything to Aegis? Are you?
No, there are no. I'm not going to scream on stream, but I'm. It's just shock manifest through my vocal cords. I would, if I could scream any harder, I probably would.
And as this is happening, Kiara comes to you, and she comes up alongside you, the two of you. You need to let him go. He did what was necessary. Sorry for the loss of your friend. We greatly could have used his abilities. But if I had known he was bleeding so profusely, I never would have brought him here. And who in the hells are you? As she suddenly turns to you, standing there, Tawny. How tall? What? Describe Tawny's height, because for some reason I'm picturing a gnome.
Sure.
I mean,
pretty close.
In my mind, I totally am picturing like this little gnome.
Probably about 3.5 feet tall. Maybe, probably, actually, a little tall for Daryl. We'll say like, I don't know, almost 4 feet. And his skin is almost like a blue, like a blue slate, and it's reflective in certain lights. It's very strange and difficult to perceive. His eyes blink, one white, one blue, and he smiles, revealing one copper tooth. And he says, "I'm sorry, the wrong car." And he says, "Toby," and he begins to kind of back away. He's also a notoriously terrible liar, so if that's something you want to carry, you feel free.
I'm going to have you roll.
Sweet.
And I'm going to have you make a dex check.
Okay. All right. So you want me to roll for dex check, or do you want me to roll for the lie?
Or
both?
Regardless of how good your lie was, there's nothing that can explain why you are on Kiaria's train.
Understood. 10. Just a flat dex check is 10, or a dex saving throw is 13. But
and
check is...
just for lack of any stats, I was using these stats last week, and I meant to say what I was doing. In case anybody was wondering, I'm using Volo's Guide to Monsters, and I've statted Kiara as a champion.
Cool.
Which is a little higher level, but she's a champion of the Lightfall. So, so you rolled a 10?
I rolled a 10 total, and that was just a flat dex check, right?
Yep.
10 total.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So, Kiara reaches out for you to grab hold of you, but you're too quick. Do you dart out of the way, or do you just dodge back just out of her reach? What do you do?
He's nimble. He's got an ability, nimbleness. He can move through a space of any creature that is a size larger than his, and he is going to run through her legs and be on the other side of her. And Toby is going to like begin to growl at her as we kind of enter this defensive posture. He pulls a dagger and says, "Don't touch me."
You know that part in Star Wars when Han Solo goes charging around the corner after the stormtroopers and right into the waiting squad of stormtroopers? As you dodge through her legs very nimbly, and you're wielding this dagger and your hound is next to you, you hear the shuffling of the armor of the other about 8 or so soldiers that are arrayed around you in the seats, as you are now completely surrounded by these soldiers. And that's a good point to cut to. Connor, can you still hear? Okay, because all of a sudden Connor's gone. That happens to me all the time. I go to somebody and they're gone. So with your perception check from earlier, as all of this is happening, and despite this kind of showdown between this sudden interloper, one of the soldiers, and Aegis, you could continue with the previous command if you wish, begins kind of darting past toward the supply car that Tawny just came from, to get the vinegar, to dilute the blood. Winfield, as you're watching out through as you're moving through the tunnels, and the only real sense of movement that you can see is the occasional blur of bioluminescent fungi. And you're now moving into a part of the caverns that there are rifts in the stone high above from the mountain. That natural light is creeping down, and it comes down in thin rays of light. And it is through one of these rays of light, as the train is piercing through this darkened tunnel, that you suddenly see a shadow. It dips in and back out again. And then it dips through another ray of light. And it's pacing the train. What do you do?
In a low tone, not too many decibels here to make too much noise. Hey, smooth skins, we got something. Something's tailing us. As he leaves the lever just for a moment to go peer out of like one of the portholes in the train, and he's got a magnificent 90 feet of dark vision, as his undead eyes can pierce even the darkness of his own soul. He's kind of trying to like scan just the cavernness of the area around this train to kind of make out the figure's shape, form, and demeanor.
And you absolutely do this. And with your dark vision, and because of the open cavern, I'm not going to make you roll for this one. You can see, moving about, darting in and around giant stalactites hanging from the ceiling, weaving in and around, and even occasionally dipping under the track. And I kind of picture this moment as one of them dips under the track as you move quickly to the other side, pushing past Copper to look out and you see it rise up, again pacing. As you see, and this time I'm going to make you roll me not a perception check, and before you get gun shy from last week's session, I'm going to have you roll a d10, but the number of creatures is predetermined. I just want to use this to determine something.
So I got either a 0 or a 10, whichever suits me better.
You suddenly lose your vision. Copper pokes you in the eyes. No. So you actually can see all of them. As you kind of take a few moments to look around, you see that there are 9 total shapes moving in and out around these stalactites, dipping and swirling around the black rail and around the train. And what you see are the shapes are giant bats. And mounted on these bats is what appears to be a squad of marrow soldiers.
And he would like get back and like kind of open up the kind of the port, not the porthole, what do you call it, the like a closing shutter that goes back into this cart. He's like, hey, turn off the lamps. And as he scurries around, and I imagine there's kind of like flashbangs of some kind of chemical or alchemical nature stowed in this train. And as he tells them to shut off the lamps, he's gonna like get ready to ignite these things and toss them out the back of the train, hopefully to disorient the whatever's tailing them.
So the rest of you back in this car, Tawny, kind of facing off and surrounded by all of these, you suddenly hear as the door at the other end of the car slides open and Asaric leans in and just says this, to kill the lanterns. And Kiara, immediately recognizing the tone in the voice, tells everybody, positions, drop it, you, make use, darkness. And she's just barking these single word commands. And she physically pulls you back, Chesser. Now is the time for action. And as the rest of the her troops around dim their lights, everything goes dark. And all you can see winking past outside the windows are these rays of light. Unless you have, who all has dark vision, I should say. So that'd be Chesser. So Aegis and Tawny, you can see these rays of lights outside just whizzing past, giving you the sense of how fast this train is moving. Chesser, you see some of the shapes moving through. You see through the window as a large bat with a marrow soldier on its back paces the window and turns with its helm of bone skull as a marrow peacekeeper looks through the window. And that is where we are going to take a brief break because, man, do I gotta pee.
Can't believe you've done this.
Can't believe you've done this.
So yeah, we're going to go ahead and take about a 5-minute or so break. Let everybody refresh their drinks, use the bathroom, do what you got to do. I'm going to play some lovely rock and roll music for you on the break. And then we will come back and we'll see what happens, as these guys are probably just looking for directions to the Ardent Scar.
Yeah, they're lost. They just want to know where the gas station is. You know?
Exactly. And what do you do is you flag down the secret ancient arcane train moving through the dark.
Don't stop your
we
videos.
Will pick back up with that in just
don't close your videos.
A moment. Yeah, please do not close off your videos or it will mess up the overlay. We will be back in just a moment. Hang on your hat. And we're back. We left the break on, as you were hurtling down the rails, Tawny and his Silverwise Hound have revealed themselves and are standing amidst all of the soldiers as this Aegis the Tomeheart and Chesser the Sarek were facing off after Aegis had just thrown Chesser's companion Brahm out the window. But to be fair, he had just been devoured by a vampiric mist. Winfield, the Rigger Ranger, has been manning the locomotive and has first spotted the Marrow soldiers mounted on giant flying bats that are encircling the train, warned everybody to dim the lights. All the lights went out, and everybody can see just hints, Aegis and Tawny. You can catch just hints of something humanoid mounted on a flying creature passing through the light. Aegis, if you would like, you can make a history check at advantage to see if in your memory banks you can recall what kind of creature this might be.
Sure. With an advantage, that's a 8.
You've seen many flying creatures, but never one that seems to have 2 heads and extra arms mounted up across its back. As to your eyes, right now, these appear to be a singular creature. Tawny, you can make some sort of perception check at disadvantage. Actually, I should have made you make that. I'll make you roll it straight as they are moving through the light, just to see if you have any. Actually, you know what, Tawny? For reasons, I'm going to give you advantage on this check. I think you know what those reasons are.
Yeah. And it like history, investigation.
Go ahead and choose.
I think it would be. I mean, history. Yeah, I think it'd be history. 14.
Yeah, you know who these are.
Oh, I didn't roll at advantage though. Hold on a second. But you already told me I know. But you know what?
I want to see if you get a little bit higher because that could give you a. I use a tiered approach to intelligence and history checks on these kind of things. The higher you roll, the more information you get.
24.
24. Not only do you recognize these as Marrow winged patrols, specifically the you know that the bat patrols are for going into the caverns. You know, as the figure that moves through the light is a Marrow commander. And you recognize the particular coloration and insignia of her armor. This is Vansom Harsh. How do you know this information about the Marrow, the Bat Patrols, and Vansom Harsh?
You see Tawny running through Sphere, dodging in and out of this harsh terrain, this crag, dodging crossbow bolts that explode by him, sending black rock and ash everywhere. He falls, he trips, he starts running, he turns around, he sees that he dropped his pack of 5 rations. He needs that to live. He runs back, grabs it, can't get all of his goods that he dropped, but boom, a crossbow bolt lands right there, and he grabs it and runs off. And he gets far enough away, and he looks back, and there you see her, Vansom Harsh, just staring at him from the distance. And the bat is kind of like on one of the towers, we'll say, of the Fortress of Ash, just like clinging to one of it. So you see its wings just kind of like hugging this tower as she's sitting on it. And then she and 2 others take off and head towards me. sometimes I don't even know how I got away. But even more than that, I don't even know how they're still tracking me, is what I think. And so he says, almost defeated, Toby, we shouldn't have left that car.
You also recognize the two legionnaires that almost never leave Vansom Harsh's side. The male legionnaire is just known for being the best of the best. Karth Havenrot, a warrior among the legionnaires. And the other one that is also never leaves her side is a female legionnaire, actually not a legionnaire, is a marrow stitcher by the name of Melsor Winterbone. You know, and all of this is just coming to you in a flash of memory from mostly bits and pieces you gleaned as you were in the heart of the Ardent Scar. Just every breath you took, every move. No. I just started to quote Police lyrics. That was not intentional. But every breath you took, every move you made, they were watching you. You knew, I'm just going to embrace it. You knew that it was dangerous with every step to be in the place you were. And you would hear some of these names and orders and commands, and you started to learn, just picking up along the way this information and storing it as you do. Chat is saying that I've got it stuck in their head now. Karen, you are welcome. There's
no need to stop the game to talk about it, Jake. You don't need to put on the red light.
I love you guys.
You too.
But Melsor, you know, is particularly where Vansom is quite the commander of the Marrow, and Karth is her sort of right-hand man. Melsor is the one that's there to protect her from afar and tend to her wounds. As mechanically, just for playtest reasons, the Stitcher is a variation of the Legionnaire that functions more or less like a cleric. And then besides them, there are half a dozen peacekeepers, also all mounted on bats. Kiara is looking out the windows and is seeing all of this and begins to bark orders. Actually, she doesn't even bark orders. She just says, "You know what to do," as she draws her sword. And Kiara actually moves past you, Aegis. And she begins to climb the ladder to the roof of the moving train. And I'm going to go ahead and say, we're going to go ahead and roll initiative for this, as we're moving into the heart of it, just to get everybody's movements in order as everything is starting to happen all at once. So I've got to check as I roll for a couple different critters here. So, going to be... And I'm rolling my Atcon D20. Better or worse.
There is no middle ground on that die.
Oh, there's not.
It's like a thumbs up and a thumbs down. It might as well be.
And that's a big thumbs down. I'm not going to tell you which one of them rolled the 6. But...
Oh,
right. Okay, Aegis, what'd you get?
So I'm just checking my my character sheet because I rolled and I got a 13, but since it's a playtest, I'm just double checking. I believe that I have as a Silverwise the ability to re-roll that. Let me see. Can you come back to me while I look at that?
Absolutely. Tawny.
I got a 16 initiative, and that's that. Yep.
Now,
I'll save my question.
I believe, because I looked into this, the Hound, there was a question about it in the previous session.
Mhm.
I believe that the Silverwise Hound, it's an either or on your turn, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Where as an action you can command your hound to do something.
Yes.
As you verify that,
It shares my initiative. I determine its actions, decisions, and attitude. Just not during role play, but definitely during initiative. I can, on my turn, verbally command the beast where to move with no action.
No action required.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
excellent.
So you can basically verbally command it where to go with no action. But then if you want to make it attack, dash, disengage, like anything that is an action, you use your action.
It's kind of built like the more or less vanilla ranger, basic ranger.
Very similar.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to verify that.
Yep.
And Winfield.
And I did check that I did choose the Silverwise trait that allows me to re-roll that.
Okay.
It's called Sixth Sense. And so this time I actually have, that's a 20. Now that is 18 on the die and my +2.
All right. And actually, go for Kara. Okay, Winfield.
Initiative is the name of Winfield's game, and he got a 26 initiative.
And Chesser.
Grand total is 7.
Okay, this will be interesting. So, here's the batting order. Winfield, you're going to go first, followed by Aegis second. Third in the order is going to be Tawny and Tobias. Fourth is the Marrow Peacekeepers. Ouch. Fifth is going to be Vansum Harsh. Normally, I wouldn't tell you everybody's initiative, but with the playtest, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Sixth is going to be Kiara. And in last place, tied, so working in tandem, it is Vansum Harsh. Or, sorry. Yeah, it's the Legionnaires were going fifth. Vansum Harsh is actually going last at the same time as Chesser. So that could be interesting. So, Winfield, as you're up in the locomotive of this, and these, as you've kind of barked this order and you get back to running the train with Copper, you notice as a couple of the Marrow Peacekeepers break off and are heading directly towards your, for lack of a better word, we'll say engine.
Yeah, so he'll bark, "Hey, Copper, handle this," as he basically leaves the controls of the levers to Copper. So both of them just has to like run back and forth. As all action scenes require, like the one person's like, "Ah, shit," like the person that's left behind. As he's gonna go to like, I imagine there's some kind of like flares or some like more like sound things, just of some kind of like alchemical nature that's kind of stored in this little area to help deter things that follow them, and in emergency situations like this one. He's gonna like go to these things if you'll allow it.
I'm gonna allow it, and I love it when my players invent things that weren't there, because there's a possibility it could work against you.
Nice. And he's gonna basically gather a handful of these maybe 3 of them or so, and he's going to climb up the ladder up to the roof, and he kind of pop the hatch, look up, and he sees these things, these bats, like just kind of tailing us. Like strike one, toss it. Strike one, toss it. He gets a total of 3 attacks on his first round of combat as a ranger. So you can, if you allow it, I like to toss 2 of these things and then like draw out my bow or something for the last.
I'll absolutely allow it.
All right.
So
I don't know how you want to handle the flashbangs.
All right, here's how we're going to handle the flashbangs. Connor, you may have experienced this before. I love to use percentile dice. And here at MTD, we use a rolling scale on percentile. So I roll my percentile, which I have done, and I have a number here. So that is essentially our center mark. I'm going to say there is a 30% chance that these poppers fail. So
I want to roll away from your number, correct?
No. You want to get within, I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct. Cool. If you want to be outside of 15 on either side of this number.
Okay. Well, I got a really high number. I got an 82.
Okay.
Hopefully.
So the first one is actually going to work. So make a ranged attack.
Yep. This is Forte.
Or unless you're just throwing it into the open air, are you throwing it specifically at the targets?
I'm gonna more so just like to throw it for distance rather than at their heads. I don't care about hitting their heads. I want the sound and the flash to be just disorienting.
All right.
These bats.
I still want you to make a ranged attack just to see if you get close enough to affect them.
So that's a 17 for the first one.
Perfect. So that, because it does work, you throw this first one, the cavern, and the rest of you can see as the cavern illuminates brightly for a moment, a quick flash. Some of you may have seen Arcanus or even those who wield Eminence casting magical effects that have similar results. And you watch as one of the peacekeepers suddenly curls away and seems disoriented. Go ahead and launch your second one. Roll that percentile.
That's a 26.
The number, and you're really lucky because in my head, I forgot to say this. If you rolled within 5 of my number, it was going to blow up in your hand. You rolled within 6 of my number. The number that I had rolled as the center point was 20. So this one, you go ahead and throw it, and it just...
Probably it extinguishes as I throw it, probably. So it's the wind, maybe.
There's just a real faint kind of like a... and it doesn't go off. So the second one is unaffected. All right, and you just said you wanted to make a bow attack.
Yeah, and so I'm going to use my bonus action as I cast Hail of Thorns on myself. As I concentrate on it, and he's gonna make this attack with his longbow as he utters this weird magic that only someone of that undead nature who's like absorbed countless magics from countless people. He's gonna launch an arrow at these things, but as it launches, it splits off into a bunch of bone shards.
Nice.
And rains down this hail of bone shards and shrapnel upon these bat-winged mounties. So I make my ranged attack roll, and then each creature within 5 feet and the target have to make a dex save. Gotcha. So I make my attack roll. I don't know how many are within, kind of an area radius of this hail of bone shards, but I'm going to make my attack roll.
All right.
That's going to be a 27 on the attack roll.
So that is going to hit.
Okay. Let me just... Oh, I don't have any D8s out. Dumb guy. What a dumb guy. Talk about being ready for the game. 1, 2, there we go. It's going to do 12 plus 16 points of piercing damage to the first target, the primary target.
Ooh,
And then
nice.
it and every other thing within 5 feet of it will make a dexterity saving throw against DC 14.
So the only thing within 5 feet of it is its mount.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to puncture those wings. Have it lose its velocity.
For some reason, I don't know if it's under a piece of paper or what. I can't. I'm going to check.
Good.
I have a D&D Beyond if you...
Yep, that's what I was just bringing up.
Oh, cool.
So...
A giant bat has 1 hit point, it looks like, an AC of 8 and a dex of -4. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that is a
+3
+3 to its dexterity. And I'm going to use this cool kind of swirly black die. There's an 18 on the die, so that's a 21, as the bat definitely makes this maneuver to kind of peel away. Do a barrel roll as it peels away.
Do a marrow roll.
Yeah, do a marrow roll.
Oh, damn.
And then the marrow itself has to make a dex save, I guess, too.
The marrow, with a +1, that is a 19 on its dex save.
Cool.
Sorry, 16.
So they're going to both succeed, which means they're taking 4 points of piercing damage.
Okay.
Because it's halved from my original die roll.
So 4 to its mount. Here. Excellent. I believe that ends your turn, unless you're going to take any additional movement.
Nope. Move was climb up. Action was my 3 attacks, and the bonus action was to do the spell. So I'm done.
All right, Aegis, you are up.
So Aegis is an arena fighter through and through, but he's gotten very proficient at wounding, killing. And so what I'm going to do is, of the ones that are nearby, are any in reach if I have a glaive?
That's a 10-foot reach?
Yeah.
Are you going out the window or are you climbing up to the roof?
I was thinking going out the window.
Okay.
And the reason for that narratively is because I plan on using my action surge. And so I'm going like poking, stabbing, sort of like grinding out the window rather than climbing up. But that's only if you'll allow it.
Of course I'll allow it.
Okay, awesome.
And I'm going to say, yeah, absolutely. Let's see, I'm going to say that the commander is in the 10 spot. I'm going to roll a d10, and I'm going to determine who is flying by the window.
Awesome.
Who the target is. That is an 8, which means it is one of the 2 legionnaires. So on a 1, it's good. Okay. You don't know which is which, but it's one of the 2 legionnaires. So yeah, as one comes flying by, you can absolutely take an attack at it.
Okay. So that is a 16.
And all right, I'm flipping through. Let's see. Now I don't know that this specifies in the playtest. Although I guess as a cleric they probably would. Since they function kind of like a cleric, the Stitchers, which is the one you're hitting, they would absolutely have a shield. However, it is not easy to maneuver a flying bat while holding a shield. So the shield is actually slung across its back, which means you just hit its AC.
Awesome. Okay. So what I was going to do is, because we're level 5, because you're an awesome DM, I also, since I took the attack action, I'm going to use my extra attack. And then what I'll do is see what hits and then add all the damage. Okay, that's a 19 on the die.
Absolutely.
And then so what I was going to also do is use my action surge.
Okay.
And that's a 16 on the die.
That's a third hit.
All right. So
Remember what I told you about ignoring average hit points and using max hit points?
I do. You monster. So that's a 7. 11. 15.
Wait, did you make a fourth attack?
That is no. I'm rolling, so I have a 1d10 plus 4 for all 3 of those attacks. So I was rolling all my damage.
You get 4 attacks total.
You took an action surge, so you get both attacks again.
You're right. You get another attack if you do action
because
surge.
Your action is 2 attacks, so on an action surge, you get 2 more attacks.
So you get a bonus action, not just a bonus attack. It's like
sweet
it
merciful.
multiplies.
We play D&D. We write D&D books.
And if you got an offhand weapon, use your bonus attack or bonus action to attack again for 5 attacks.
Hey, per that AbTab thread, I just found out you can take any skill you want if you double up on background, and we're always learning. We're always learning new stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So
and I hit on that final one because that is also a 17.
Excellent.
Dude, this is insane.
You needed those as Brahm against those Kuthrik.
No kidding.
Because those were all AC 20.
Oh, God.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, we were rolling pretty high. We just weren't doing it.
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
So you got 4 hits, and you said it's 1d10 plus.
And so I added up my damage because I took, because I knew what we were up against here. So I took like great weapon fighting as my fighter, and I'm using a glaive. So it's a d10 plus 4. And so
rerolling ones. Nice.
Dude, yes. And so I was at all up. I was at 27 before that 4th attack. So now that's oh my God, that's what Jake. I've never done this much damage ever. I just did 37 hit points of damage.
Not to mention that you are attacking out a moving train window at a marrow stitcher riding a flying bat with a glaive. What does this look like? How do you take this stitcher out in one attack action?
The glaive slides effortlessly into the bever. So that plate that sort of covers, there's this slot that's probably about 6 inches, and the glaive just slides right in there. And while the head stays attached, it unhinges like the hatch to a cellar.
Okay. And there is a spray, a fountain of blood. And Tawny, you would actually recognize seeing this out the window. As soon as the stitcher, as soon as Melsor Winterbone is nearly beheaded, the giant bat that it is riding, that she was riding, folds its wings and pulls into a dive and disappears away from the fray. There is a sort of almost psychic bond between these riders and their mounts, and it has just been severed. Anything else you got going on there, Aegis? I mean, you did a lot, but you didn't move.
Nope. I'm gonna stay planted here.
And as you see this, Tawny, what are you and Tobias? What are you doing?
Tawny thinks to himself, maybe we're not dead. Shakes the thought and points to a spot near if I'm facing the edge of the train car where the enemies are outside, the marrow, points to a spot near the left, snaps his fingers, and Toby moves over in that direction while Tawny moves towards the right direction and takes kind of cover underneath the window, pulling out this short bow and this arrow. He's going to knock an arrow and in one fluid motion kind of pull it around the side of the edge of the window and see if he can pull Is Vansom Harsh still out there?
She is out there. Let me see if she pulls in to either side where you can see her. Again,
Okay.
she is on the 10 spot. Rolled a 6, so that means, excuse me, you have a clear shot at a peacekeeper.
Okay, great.
Unless you want to take extra time to move to the other side and look for Vansom.
A peacekeeper can kill Tawny, but Vansom Harsh will torture him to death. And so either way, he's dead. He's happy to take whoever he can with him. So he's going to release the arrow, attacking with a 13.
That is going to bounce off of the armor.
Yeah, I know. And he's going to say, damn, and he's going to use his cunning action to, that he gets as a rogue. I'm sorry, yeah, to get a bonus action. No, wait. Yes, he's going to take the bonus action to hide, and he can hide because of his, I just pulled it off, his ability as a Darrow to hide with when he has at least half cover. And so he's going to roll a stealth to try to hide behind the half cover.
All right.
Trying to see behind the gate in Ellington Estate. And yeah, baby. 27.
You are hidden. And I'm actually going to say that because of the windows of the train and everything, we'll give you the 3/4 cover on that.
Sweet.
And I also am realizing this is the first time I've ever played in a game with you since you've used Ellington Estate. So it's kind of that little extra special.
Cool, man. I'll bring it up here for you.
If you head over to Mornblade Gaming's YouTube channel, he just put up a unboxing. That's Dave Hubble just received Mornblade watch dice tower that I made for him. So you've hidden. That's the end of your turn then?
Yes.
And can I assume that that's so sexy. Dice tower's looking good too.
Just gonna hold it.
Is Tobias hiding with you?
No, Tobias is same side of the car, opposite, like same side. Oh crap. Widthwise, opposite side lengthwise.
Gotcha.
Up the wall a bit.
All right. So it is now the Peacekeeper's turn. One of the Peacekeepers was blinded by Winfield's flashbang, but the where is it? Giant bat navigates on echolocation and keen hearing, and so it is not affected and is able to navigate. However, it seems that particular one seems to be using its efforts to keep its rider aloft. The other Peacekeeper is going to come flying in towards the engine, and Winfield, you're still sticking out the top, aren't you?
Yeah, he's actually like right on the top. I think there's like I want to say like a low wall kind of surrounding this little hatch, so that he can like duck behind it for like quarter cover or something, just to kind of protect him there. So he kind of like a little ledge he kind of crouches behind where he's lobbing out arrows.
Excellent. As this, I wish I'd have put these up in the little slideshow. You can actually see the slides below me are some of the marrow right now on the overlay there, hidden a little bit by the dice. But this particular marrow, as he comes in, reaches along the edge of the saddle on his bat mount, and he draws this wicked-looking long pole with what looks like a V shape, and then there's an arc with spikes on it. As he flies in within 10 feet of you where you're up on top of this engine, and he is going to, the bat dips down and he's going to attempt to catch you with his man catcher. That is going to be, I'm not going to use the Yatcon die for this one. Let's see. The 12 on the dice with a +4 to hit. That's a 16.
Would you say that the small walls would give me any sort of cover from this attack? Because if not, that's a hit. But if it is, that's a hit.
I'm going to say there's not enough height on top of the engine
Yep.
to create the kind of walls that would grant you cover. So you are going to take from this. Oh, it's a PDF. I can magnify it. I'm here squinting, trying to read the stat block. Like, what does that say? My old man eyes can't read it. It says 2d100 damage. So that's
not a 2, it's a 5.
6
5d100.
plus 2. So you take 8 piercing damage, and you are grappled. And you feel as this thing, as it sort of slides in around, it just slides in around your neck, and you can already feel that the spikes on the side are pulling against you. And at this moment, you're fortunate that the bat and the rider moved in to match speed with the locomotive just as he caught you, and you're currently in this kind of it made this action to attack you. Just gonna double check its stats because I think the peacekeepers only get the 1 attack. So you have been man-catched.
And so he's not only thankful about these like matched velocities, as he like instinctively reaches up to touch his neck as like a person would do as they're being injured. When he pulls away his hand, there's no blood. Instead, there's just like this thin dust, like sand, that comes out of these holes in his neck. I took the Seric feature that I have like an undead body, and I'm resistant to piercing and slashing damage.
Oh,
because like my body isn't even fleshy anymore. So like he doesn't even care about those spikes very much at all. Like,
so then you take only 4 points of piercing
4 damage, yeah.
From that. Perfect. 4 more of the peacekeepers peel off from the group, and you hear up on the roof of the car that you're in, you hear as 2 of them, and you would see this, Winfield, as further back, 2 peacekeepers leap off of their bat mounts and land on the roof of the moving train. And the last 2 peel off towards just at this back section of the car, kind of where Aegis, you're hanging out of the window. They move in close, and this is the kind of move I would make, so I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna roll this die, and I'm gonna roll this one. I'm gonna do them at the same time. As they move to either side of the car, these peacekeepers are going to attempt to leap off of their mounts and through the window into the car.
It's badass.
That is going to be
so amazing.
I'm going to use their athletics skill to do this. And if I'm being fair, because it's a moving target from a moving target, I got to call it disadvantage.
I mean, they probably have a little bit of shake in their boots too from, who knows how much of a plummet it is.
So the first one on Aegis' side, at disadvantage, that is a 15, which is exactly the DC that I wanted for this. So the first one comes through the window. It's not graceful. It kind of clatters against it as it kind of unceremoniously dumps in through the window near you, Aegis, like one just in front. On the other side, you hear a thunk, and it's actually where you're kind of hiding up by the seat and below the window, Tawny. And you see this, Chesser, as well from your vantage point, as this other one leaps, misgauges the jump, slams into the vertical bar between windows, and you just hear that total Wilhelm scream as it falls off into the darkness. So there is now one more or one dead one of those, and its bat flies off. So that is the peacekeepers' turns. Number 5, it is, well, let's see. Melsor's dead. Karth, the other Legionnaire, is going to move. He's actually going to dismount his bat too, but over the supply car. As he leaps off of his bat and lands on the supply car and begins to move forward. He is not yet close enough to do any damage to anybody, to make any attacks. So that is going to take us to Kiara, who is using her turn to climb up the side of the car and get up to the top, and she looks to be preparing herself to deal with these warriors up on the top. So that then takes us to Vansum Harsh and Chesser. And Chesser, I'm going to put you ahead of Vansum. You're essentially working at the exact same moment, but I want to hear from you first.
So I was, for all intents and purposes, by the door that this guy had jumped in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you and I heard something else.
Oh, sorry. Might be.
It was just your torture chamber.
Yeah, residual from the. You don't. Never mind. So there is some sort of, or not some sort of. I'm right next to where this guy had jumped in. Correct. If he was by Aegis.
Yep.
I'm going to brandish. I think I can only draw one weapon at a turn without having the 2-weapon feat. So I'm going to brandish my my axe and just try and cleave into this guy as much as I can. Probably because he's in between me and Aegis, and that's unacceptable right now.
All right.
So I also can make 2 attacks. Not good. Total of 16 will, I think, hit, you said, but the 10 will not.
The 16 will hit the Peacekeeper. The 10 will not.
Okay.
And what were you brandishing? An axe, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
For a total of 5 damage. I rolled a 1.
As he's kind of moving, still kind of collecting himself from this kind of unceremonious tumble through the window, you catch him with your axe, and his armor absorbs a portion of it, but you do draw blood. And as he stands to full upright position, his sword is already in hand and comes up to just knock your axe aside as there's a clang in front. And for the moment, Vansum Harsh actually is going to... Vansum Harsh is actually going to fly to the front. And her bat, which is actually an albino bat. I just picture it as an albino bat. It really stands out. And this thing just moves in such perfect speed matching that it's able to grip hold of the engine, and Vansum just steps off of the bat without having to leap. Now standing on the moving engine on top of it, looking at where you are grappled, Winfield, by this Peacekeeper, with barely a sideways glance. She walks to the edge. She stands next to you, looks down the length of the train at her troops and what they are doing. And that is her turn for now. As we are back to the top of the order, Winfield, you are currently grappled in a Peacekeeper man catcher. What are you going to do?
All right, so he's going to grab onto the sides of this man catcher, these big, long, grabber thingies. And then we hear, ligaments pop as, he flexes muscles harder than a human body can. And, a sickening crunch happens at the bone as he, lifts himself up off the train, builds up momentum, kind of flips around, basically trying to, break out of this grapple, essentially, with an acrobatics check, if you'd like.
absolutely love it. So go ahead, and I've got the escape DC. I will allow you to use acrobatics to attempt that.
So that will be an 18 on the escape.
Okay, and you are going to take 4 points, halved down to 2 points, as more of this sand sort of just blowing in the wind from the movement of the train, which is moving just a little bit slower because Copper is in there trying to maintain the speed herself.
So instead of just breaking free from the grapple and being back on the train, I'm going to like kind of run, get a kick, jump start, and actually swing up onto the back of the bat behind the marrow. As I'm doing so, I'm going to pull out my short sword and like poise it to his neck from behind him, if you'd like. As part of this escape with the grapple.
I'm just picturing this as you kind of run up, flip off of the man catcher.
Yeah, like because I'm like an undead. I got like unnatural strength. And, like
okay,
kind of myself up and reef
so
it, you know?
Technically, it's your action to escape the grapple.
Yeah.
But this whole scene is so totally badass. I want to see it play out. I'm gonna let you try it, but you're gonna make this acrobatics check at disadvantage because you're moving off of a moving train onto a moving bat, trying to land behind the troop.
This is all this huge flourish of an escape.
It has on paper and in rehearsal, it looks awesome. That's the look of somebody that just rolled a nat 20.
Okay, so you said disadvantage, right?
I did.
Let's see if it shows up in my dice tower. Can you see that?
Is that 2 20s?
That is fucking 2 20s.
What a waste.
What a
Okay. All right. Winfield. 2 20s on a disadvantage roll in this incredible attack action. Walk us through it, and how do you kill this peacekeeper?
Sorry, I just accidentally unplugged my headset there. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Yes, I heard all of this.
Just real quick, I want to answer a question from Barker, because it is a playtest. Yes, that was the 4 piercing damage that he halved when he escaped, because yes, it does specifically say because of the spikes. And if you look on AbsoluteTabletop.com or Absolute Tabletop official Facebook group, and probably on the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, this or on the Absolute Tabletop Twitter, this artwork with all of their kits and the marrows has been shared. These man catchers are vicious and probably one of my favorite weapons I've ever seen, which is why I had to use it. And yeah, it spikes all around the neck. So you absolutely do. Anybody that attempts to make any kind of movement or escape from these things takes piercing damage. And it's scaled really nicely. I like the D4 damage on these, so it doesn't feel too OP. So Connor, go ahead and walk us through this awesome action.
So you hear these ligaments pop as he like pulls it down almost out of this marrow's hands, the whole man catcher. He's like still grappled in it, right? He's like crouching now on the top of the train. He's like almost pulling, the bat's being kind of pulled down a bit too by this tug, and then he just like leaps, and up he leaps and kind of just arcs, and as he arcs, it, the marrow kind of like loses the grip on the man catcher. He flips around in air, he pulls out this dagger, lands in the back of this bat, right? Leans in, grabs the marrow by the shoulder with one hand, short sword in the other, pressing it right to the guy's neck. And like you can just smell the reek of death on his face. These like scurvied teeth that are half falling out, half black, breathing in right into the nostrils of this marrow's helmeted head.
And as part of this action, and because of the play test, you just go ahead and how do you execute him?
Just like right through the throat. As it
and
just,
that's
like,
only because of the 2 20s. That's the only reason I'm giving you that full action.
So like he just, this like backwards grip just plunges the short sword right into that like soft spot where you need a neck seam to be able to move your head with a helmet, and just like and just like gushes of blood as he punctures that artery pool out over this dagger, and he just like lets him die as he's clutching. He's like trying to break free, and he just dies there. And he's able to just like shove him off the bat. And next turn he's going to like try and grab on the reins of this bat.
Okay. So you've just killed the neurolinked rider to this bat. So we'll see what happens on the next turn as you are on the back of this bat. It is now Aegis's turn.
So with all the carnage that's going on here, is anyone... I know one tried to jump in the window, one fell out. We've got one still that I could probably hear like walking on the roof.
There's actually on the roof of your car, so there is one in front of you that Chesser is currently engaged with, of the Peacekeepers. Two more
Gotcha.
Peacekeepers landed on the roof of your car.
Okay.
And technically you don't know this, but the Legionnaire Karth landed on the supply car one car back. And
Okay,
you
excellent.
do know that Kiara went up top.
Gotcha. So I will just take my glaive and attempt to aid Chesser. Which is probably surprising for Chesser, but you know, when I threw Brahm out the window, it was just like squashing a bug that's not supposed to be there. It was just circumstantial. So I am going to basically feint. So this is where the arena fighting, the pit fighting really comes into play. So just thematically, I'm going to sort of feint, because this is how I was hit a few times. So I've seen other creatures do this to me. And so as I wave this glaive, it's sort of, it's long. So it's got this, it almost it belies where the blade is versus where your hands move. It's not like a sword where you can watch it and as an extension of the bearer's arm, sort of see where it's coming from. The glaive is just sort of swooshing and cutting in the air. Okay, so the first attack, 14. That does not hit. And the second attack is a 13, and that also does not hit. And so, you know, and as I miss, I approach this marrow and am going to attempt to close the distance between us.
All right, so you're moving right up on it, just sort of. You're not sure if you fainted, you know, just a little too far, or if the Legionnaire, or excuse me, the Peacekeeper just happened to, in its engagement with Chesser, you know, kind of move out of the way at the right moments, as you don't even connect with its armor. Tawny
is not like many of his brethren, his kin, who know exactly where they are, no matter the lighting situation, no matter the darkness. They know which way is north. They know which way is up and down. And in this train, it's difficult to perceive it. He saw the Peacekeeper attempt to fly, to leap through the window right near him and fail and fall into the abyss below. Does he see anyone outside that window immediately? Any other Peacekeepers? Romero?
You actually do not.
Tawny is going to climb out the window and use his ability, second story work, just a rogue ability, to climb at normal speed up the side of the train and get to the top where he can see and be more useful, not in a packed train car, but maybe a little bit more in the open, albeit more dangerous with his bow.
And there's I love it. Matt's in the chat with all capitals. Second story work to climb a moving train. Absolutely brilliant. And this is a very cinematic moment. It seems almost like an Indiana Jones type thing. As you scramble out this window and climb up, you go to climb up the edge and you see They haven't seen you, but those 2 peacekeepers that landed on the roof, one of them, his feet are like right there next to you as you poke up. You can continue with your normal movement up onto the train, or you can do something else.
I kind of want to sneak attack to try to pull him off the train, but I'm such a tiny person. Darrow are 4 feet tall at max, and maybe I can like cut an Achilles or something. I think it's worth it.
All right, so you can make a if you're going to try to pull him off, it's going to be an athletics check.
Yeah, it is.
Otherwise, it's going to be an attack action if you want to try to, like you said, do an Achilles attack. And we'll see how the dice land and what we can do narratively with this.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee there that he flies off. So you know what?
And just to kind of add to, as they're kind of just swinging by on the slideshow below me again, the peacekeepers actually have this sort of, I don't know what it's called, but it's this cloth that's kind of part of their garments that comes down and hangs down in the front a little ways too. And the back, so there's almost something to grab hold of besides just trying to grab his armored leg.
Yep, that's actually, I swear I was just about to say that exact same thing. He's going to reach up and pull like that crimson cloth downward, and
I love this artwork. I absolutely love the artwork for the Marrow.
Now, part of me wanted to ask if I had advantage because I'm making an athletics check, and he can't see me, but I'm also on the side of a moving train, so
yeah, which I'm just gonna have it be a straight roll.
Evens itself out.
Yeah, that whole being on the side of a moving train, you're doing some cool stuff, but it does kind of would normally put disadvantage. We're just gonna call it flat.
Come on, Dice Tower, here we go. God, it was an 18 for 1 second. Now that's a 2. So I tug on it. Hey, buddy. Oh, yikes.
And there's this moment of, huh? As he looks down and sees you tugging on his armor cloth. I don't know what that's called.
Would you I mean, I don't, actually I wish I had the image in front of me. It's not his veil, but like it looks like a what is that called?
I put it in the chat but I was blocked by an auto mod.
What? On which chat?
In the Twitch chat.
I'm going to allow it because it's my channel. It's called a PP Dangler.
In the lore, it's called a PP Dangler.
Yes.
Now we still have a little bit of time to workshop that.
So as you're workshopping it for the purpose of this playtest,
well, wasn't it invented by a man named Petrie Pierre or something like that?
No, it's called a patrol pot cloth, and that's the
is it the
Petrie Pierre's patrol pot cloth?
He caught it right in the dangler.
All right.
Okay. So I want to use my cunning action to hide, but I don't think I can. I think I would have to do it to disengage.
Yeah, hiding is going to be tricky since you literally just pulled on his PP dangler.
Oh, don't stand so close to me. That's what he says to me, and I am going to. I'm gonna disengage by attempting to like climb to the left because I can't come straight up because he's standing right there. I'm just gonna do that maneuver thing where I'm gonna be hanging here. He's gonna probably strike down, and I'm gonna move to the right and move to the left and whatnot.
If you move to the left, you will be moving in the direction he was facing, which is towards Kiara, and where you can actually see the Legionnaire on the other car now. If you move to the right, you'll be moving towards the locomotive, towards the engine.
Towards where Winfield has taken over his own bat.
Yes, and you can actually see him sitting on the bat right now.
Sweet. This is bat country.
So towards the...
I'm going to go to the right.
Okay.
I'm going to go towards the locomotive.
All right. So you're taking a disengage to get out of the way. Oh, I got to let Matt's... More PP Dangler stuff going on in the chat. Automod blocking you guys left and right.
Rightly so. The thing's doing its job.
Yeah, it's doing its job. It's doing its job. So you have disengaged. So how far does that allow you to move? Because you can climb at your regular speed.
If I'm
going to say it took you 10 feet of movement to get to the top of the train.
And I have 15 left, and I'm still hanging on the side of the train a little bit.
Yeah, so you could move 15 feet towards the front of the train, or you could move like 10 feet and then use your last 5 to get up on top. However you want to do that.
That second one is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of and it'll look more like an acrobatic swing off of some of these rails that are jutting out on the side of the car. It's not a flat surface. There's a bunch of stuff going on the side of the black rail.
For sure,
and he climbs up, and he kind of is standing there facing the Legionnaire for a second, or the Peacekeeper for a second. Or no, it's the Legionnaire.
Nope, that's the Peacekeeper, the one that you grabbed.
Y'all Marrow look alike.
Well, he is the one that it is now their turn. No, it's not. Yeah, it's the Peacekeeper's turn. So he is going to turn, and he is going to engage with you. And he is going to raise a crossbow. And because he is standing next to... Nope, that's saving throws for formation tactics. Nope, he's not going to shoot at you. He's going to move towards you. And he's a brute, so you're going to, if he hits, this is going to be a short sword attack. He just gives you that look as he draws, shing, and just closes the distance to you. He swings his sword for a natural 6 on the die, bringing it to a 10. You easily are able to dodge out of the way.
It smacks right into the train, the top of the train.
There's like just a little bit of one of those like short cupolas coming up, and he just misses you and catches into the wood of that. The other one just kind of glances, sees that his bro's got things in hand, and is going to move towards Kiara. And that is going to take us to the Legionnaire, Karth Havenrot. He moves toward, and Tawny, you're pretty much the only one that can see this. As the Legionnaire moves towards Kiara, I need to move to their stats. And what are a spear? Okay, so I'm going to do a thing here. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm not. I'm not kidding. I rolled a nat 20 on this attack against Kiara. So I'm wasting my nat 20s against NPCs. But Tawny, this is what you see. As Karth Havenrot, wielding a long spear, moves purposely forward, reaching across the gap between the two cars. He jams his spear, finds a weak spot in Kiara's armor, and you watch as he jams it in, and he lifts upward, and he doesn't stop as he flings her overhead, and you see her armored form as she goes screaming and hits the supply train car, and there's some tumbling, and you watch as she falls off the side of the train behind. It is now, and you are the only one that saw this, Tawny. Let's see, that was Legionnaire. Well, it was Kiara's turn. Chesser.
Tawny says, "Find peace in the gray," just underneath his breath.
Excellent. Chesser, you are up.
So this wily soldier in front of me has effectively dodged a few attacks outside of the half-hearted axe swing. So I'm going to make 2 more attacks. Just at this point, I think I've drawn my my short sword as well.
Excellent.
God damn. So a 12 for the first one, which I don't think hits, but a 22 for the second.
So was your first attack with the axe or the sword?
So technically, I think as a second weapon, my bonus action is my offhand. Or do I go back and forth?
I don't care at this point, just with the playtest.
Okay, well, for the sake of it, I'm hitting him twice with my axe, and I'm also going to make a bonus action to attack with my short sword.
So yeah, so one missed.
It do actual damage.
All right.
So
that's one more attack in there then, right?
Yes. 16 on the die.
That is a hit.
So my first swing is parried, but I savagely bring in for another one to do 10 points of damage. And as he kind of recoils from getting hit in the ribs with the axe, I come in with a stab and do another 8 plus 3, 11 damage.
That's enough to finish this peacekeeper off as he just drops to his knees, gurgling.
I think I want to just use whatever movement I can to use this guy's kneeling position to boot him out of the door he came in.
Yeah, you can pretty much just shove him out the window that he flew through. Send him out into the void. At the same time, the commander drops down. Vansom Harsh. Actually, no, she wouldn't drop down because she was standing there at the edge, and she now sees, standing on the other car in front of her, the Silverwise Darrow that she saw in the Ardent Scar. And you just hear behind you, Tawny, the words, "You?" As Vansom Harsh is going to draw her flail. She reaches back and pulls it, and the chain with this spiked rod and ball hanging off the end of it, shing, and shing, she's got her shield on her other side. She steps forward, crossing the gap, letting the momentum of the train. It's as if she just lets the train move below her. She takes that step, and she's suddenly on your car. And she's going to move forward to attack you. And I got to do that. She's going to use multi-attack and attack you twice. The first attack is an 18 on the die. That's going to be a 25 to hit you. The second attack, and actually, I'm going to just see what this first one does, because she's going to use her martial advantage to deal an extra 3d6. Wait a minute. Let me read this right. If the creature is within 5 feet of an ally. Yeah, because the other Marrow, our peacekeeper, was engaged with you. So you're going to take... Where all my d8s go? You are going to take 6 points of bludgeoning damage from the flail, but it hits with such force you take an additional rolled low, 6, 8. So you take a total of 14 points of bludgeoning damage from the first attack of this flail, as she just brings it down on your small frame. The second attack, she doesn't even hesitate as she strikes you, and she rises up with it again, and with a 26, she strikes you.
That one misses.
It could for 2 domain dice.
Oh, you know what?
You could. It costs you 2 domain dice to make me re-roll.
I mean, is anyone else going to... I want to use those 2 domain dice. I'm doing it right now.
Do it.
I was going to burn domain dice on my acrobatic maneuver, but I just happened to roll 2 20s on disadvantage.
2 20s.
So...
All right, so there go. Level, 2 domain dice going away. I'm going to re-roll this second attack. She raises the flail, and that is a 17, so it's still going to be a 24 to hit you.
Oh, so I still see 2 domain dice. No.
Do it. We're about to wrap up.
You can only use... You have to take the result on domain dice. take the
What
new
are you
result.
in charge or something, Jake?
I'm in charge. But I only rolled a 1, so that's 5 additional bludgeoning damage you take.
Okay. Now, quick question. I could not see the first attack because I'm facing off against this peacekeeper. The second attack, legionary. The second attack, is it possible that I was looking at her that time or no?
I would say you would have heard the voice when she said you and stepped over to engage with you.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I do have uncanny dodge and I can drop I can have the damage.
You can absolutely have that first one.
Okay.
I'm not going to make you say you have to burn movement or be your turn to turn around and look at the big boss that's coming
You
at
hear
you.
the whistling in the air of the flail, like whipping up steam. You're like, ooh.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see you there.
There are a few kinds of DMs, and
that's a fair question.
But I will take I can't do it again, so I'll take that second 5. And
excellent.
Yeah.
And now, as we move into this, I'm going to slip into something a little more narrative. Actually, first off, since we're at the top of the order, because I got to see what happens with this. Winfield, I need to see, because this is going to be part of this narrative movement, to see if you are able to successfully take control of this bat.
So I reach down with these like bony skeletal hand, and I place it right on the skull of this bat. I kind of grab the reins of the other one just to make sure I don't fall off, as this bat's probably like reeling around. I dig into that furry scalp of this bat. I imagine it's pretty mangy. And with like the disgustingest guttural tones, I want it to make a wisdom save. Against DC 14.
That is a nat 20.
Well,
that's the same die that rolled the nat 20 before.
Well, I was casting animal friendship on it to take it over and charm it. So I'm going to make you re-roll that nat 20 if possible, because I want this to happen.
All right. I'm going to reuse the same die. And just like the last time, that's a 17 on the second roll. That's a wisdom. Let me see if it has like a low wisdom. That's an 18 total on the save.
Oh,
well, I guess I'm just like.
I want you to make a dex check.
Just straight up dex check.
Yep. Well, if
that'll be.
Make it a dex saving throw.
Oh, that
might actually work in your favor a little bit, but
yeah, that's going to be a 16 then.
It's good enough. So there's suddenly all of you are shrouded in bright light, as at this moment the black locomotive on the black rail pierces through a opening in the side of the mountain for a long stretch of open air rail. As you the train comes out into the open. Also spitting out of the mouth, careening in a spiral, is Winfield Palefinger, clinging desperately, hanging onto this bat. A hail of spears and arrows begin flying towards the train. Standing over you, Tawny, Vansum Harsh takes a javelin to the shoulder and drops to a knee next to you. Several arrows, thunk, 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 into the roof. The peacekeeper behind you takes a javelin to the throat. The legionnaire, Karth Havenrot, holds up his shield as half a dozen arrows hit it. Karth Havenrot runs forward, or rather backwards, and leaps off the side of the train, landing onto his bat and peeling away. Vansum Harsh, now on her knee, looking you in the eye, Tawny, presses her shield, which is holding her up. She looks at you and she says, "This isn't over." as she turns and she steps off, and you hear her make this sort of high-pitched whistle sound as she just steps off the side, but with a bit of a limp. You see her drop like a stone, and then a moment later, about 15 feet away, you see the albino bat pull away with her on its back. As all around the opening of the rail, and it's starting to slow a bit as Copper is bringing it to slow it down. All around the ridges, you see dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds of Sarek forces, Gwendolyn Greybone's rebels, watching the tunnel mouth, waiting for you, chasing off the Marrow soldiers that attacked. And as the train relatively silently comes to a stop as Copper brings it to a halt, we see one Sarek, half-rotten face, what's left of her hair blowing in the wind as she holds a longbow looking down below at the train. Gwendolyn Greybone looks down at the train, and then we see Winfield Palefinger flying by on this out-of-control bat. And as the train comes to a halt, from the far end of the train, we see a gauntleted hand and another as Kiara Jin pulls herself up from the last car, looks up at Gwendolyn Greybone, and salutes. And that is where we're going to end tonight's session of Blood and Vengeance.
Awesome.
Man, I would have loved to play that out in a longer form game. Trying to keep these games down to a shorter time frame, it's harder to run long combats like that, but especially with you guys being so narratively descriptive. But I wanted to give us a couple rounds in there to give everybody a chance to use some of their combat abilities to play out some of the techniques of these. I didn't get to test my Stitcher. Friggin' Tim Carney and his action surge four attacks from a moving train. Got Barker over here doing second story work out the side of a moving train.
You can playtest the Stitcher or playtest the Tomeheart, but not both.
Right, exactly. There was actually a thing early on when I came up with the idea for the Black Rail that I totally forgot to do, and in part it was because of Winfield kind of just declaring that the expertise with it, and I just went with kind of made up the whole rigor concept off of that. But originally the engineer of this train was going to be named Piper Ironhead. That's a deep cut. It's a deep cut that some of you will get, but it's an homage to our good friend Mike the Piper and his Ironhead Chronicles series that often take place on trains. And Mike is a DM on our Monday night games here on MTG.
The first Brigade Con was Mike the Piper ran the Silver Dragon Express. I don't know, maybe.
Oh, it was such a beautiful game.
So I was just thinking the way he described the train at the beginning. Anyone watching this should go look up that video and just watch the intro. It's so good.
It's just amazing. So again, we, in part because of our delay from technical difficulties, we ran a little bit later, but I don't care. I don't have to work tomorrow. Sorry for you that do. So I do want to say again, from my perspective as a DM, one of the things I love about Absolute Tabletop products, the adventure kits, and just everything in general. I run a lot of pre-published modules or published modules, pre-written modules. I like running things out of the box. I'll occasionally put my own twists on them. So where last week I had to make some stuff up, I like doing that for one-offs, not for entire monster sets. So having all of these marrow stats, and once I got digging into it and saw that I only scratched the surface of the variants. I mean, you've got the Peacekeepers, the Legionnaires, and the Commanders, and then you've got at least 1 to 3 variants for each of them based on the regions of Dragongrin you would find them in. Some of the weapons, they basically have kits, as they're described, that they can be outfitted with. Of course, I wanted to test out the man catcher. So I had some ideas I wanted to do with them that didn't quite play out, but as we saw, Vansum Harsh got away, and so did Karth Havenrot. So who knows if we'll see them again. They will definitely, if they don't show up next week, or if they survive or whatever, they are definitely getting a home in my own Dragongrin. But I really like having all these stats. To me, for what they're supposed to be within the lore of the world, the Marrow are formidable foes. My twist, of course, was putting them on bats and fighting on a moving train. But I just really like them. They're at first glance, they seem complex, but they're pretty simple. They've got a lot of elements of fighters and battle master, things like that, things that make them feel powerful besides just giving them a high AC. And honestly, for what they are, I didn't feel like the hit points were too outrageous either. You can stick with the average HP, and they're pretty. I felt, I'll hear from you guys in a moment, but I felt 1 commander, 2 legionnaires, and 6 peacekeepers against the 4 of you, technically 5 because you had Kiara with you, was a pretty fair balance. But I'm not sure if we put you on the ground, what would happen with that. And of course, there were no magic users, and you might have gotten messed up if Melsor had survived, because she had some spells that she could have used.
I might have died if Vansum hit me one more time.
Yeah, I actually wondered about that.
Powerful, super powerful. Like, the Marrow are not to be trifled with. These aren't just like what's the thing I said? They're not Foot Clan ninjas,
right?
You know, they're not Putty Patrol. These guys are like armed and armored beasts of people with excellent equipment, excellent skill, and their career is killing.
And if anybody here should not have been toe-to-toe with the commander, it's Tawny. It was just pure circumstance of where you put yourself within the description of movement and the way the pieces were arranged on the board.
I liked it, though.
Tawny and a little bit of Barker just have a tendency to put yourself in the thick of it.
It's like, I'm gonna get some space. I'm gonna get some air, guys. I'm gonna vape.
So real quick, because I know both Tim and Baron, like me, are on the East Coast here, and it's already 12:30. Let's go ahead and hear final thoughts from you guys before we bug out of here. And then I'll do some closing words real quick. So, Tim, final thoughts.
The Tome Heart felt really good. It just in flavor alone, it was really interesting to play, but just the mechanics held up. I didn't feel like anything was too overpowered, and it felt really cool to give the Tome Heart a culture. So they're going to all be very different as well. So there's a lot of different layers of customization with the heritage and the culture. Marrow felt dangerous. So as a player, I knew the stat block. Matt did all the heavy lifting, really, on that, and he did an amazing job. And I think we all had the same vision that Barker communicated so perfectly. But knowing what I knew, the metagame actually made it scarier, because I was like, oh man, when you started counting them off, I was like, this is a fight I can't win. So I actually think that the players knowing these stats will make them meta afraid of Marrow, and that's kind of a cool thing. And so I'm just really happy with the way that you ran them, and just killer. Awesome as always, Jake.
I think for some reason, because they're of the way they're depicted as soldiers, I approached them a more tactical way, and in a longer session I could have explored this a little more. My intention was to have a couple of them, and honestly, if Winfield hadn't popped out the top, the two that went to the front, their goal was to decouple the engine from the train, which would have left you guys moving under inertia and gradually slowing down. But I couldn't get them close enough, or something would distract them. And again, you attacking out the window caused them to realize there's a bigger threat inside, which is why the two jumped inside. It was interesting for me as a DM. I don't normally think of them as individuals in that tactical sense. I do apply a more group tactics to it. So I really like these guys. Connor.
I had a blast rolling 2 nat 20s. Even outside of rolling 2 nat 20s, it was cool to just be like, hey, I'm just like a weird, ghoulish person, and I'm considered normal. That was kind of a weird hurdle for me to get over. I'm like, you know what? These are dire times. Like, who cares if your brother in arms, right, doesn't have all his teeth, or maybe he kind of stinks of rot or whatever. You know, he's still a competent fighter. He still leads the resistance, right? He's still on your side, and a sword arm is a sword arm. That was kind of a really cool kind of feeling that I got from this. And I just want to put it out there, like the character building of these races and cultures, the way they kind of blend together is really cool and different and unique, while also being familiar. Like, we're so used to picking out races and sub races that why not pick a race and then pick a sub race belonging to a different race, kind of thing. That makes any sense. Like, you're just kind of mix and match all you want. And it'll be cool to see what it looks like after all of these different options are presented, right? Ranging from your dwarves to your elves to your, to your Darrow, to your humans, to whatever other races you got in your world, and all these different cultures and all the different regions there are. Like, wow, that's kind of really cool. So yeah, and good job, Jake, on like keeping the tension high. A lot of action games can kind of like lose momentum when we get to the nitty-gritty rules and like die rolls, and like, oh crap, where is the monster from here? Isn't he over there? How many are close to me? This is a really well framed set piece, and I loved the imagery, the momentum, the just all the action going on. It was really well pulled off. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you. Baron.
So, kind of tacking on to what Connor said, it does feel very D&D while still being the versatility of the adventure kit. Like, about 15 minutes into the game, when you were playing the Tome Heart, I had kind of the revelation that this could be reskinned in a way to play like a post-apocalyptic, like Fallout-y a game where, like, your Serics are your ghouls, where they're like very, inhuman, and then you got your Tome Heart, artificial intelligences. So just kind of the practicality and the versatility of, here's a setting, but it's more valuable that there's the concept of, in an integrated world where you can be this race but have the same tendencies as something else, which is kind of a neat concept that I don't think is used. So that itself is fun to tinker with, just as a concept, as a world builder. um, I had a blast. I certainly have had a hell of experience getting to play with two of the creators of this world. So truly, thank you for having me.
Always glad to have you. And finally, Barker.
Baron, Connor, Tim, it was awesome playing with you guys. Jake, thank you so much for running this game. I want to second what Tim said. I really, without diving into it too long, because you guys need to go to bed, but basically, I love the idea of people running away from the marrow. And there are options and ways in the book to make it easier to fight them, or to make it easier to show them and initiate combat with low-level players. Like, those things are there. But I love the idea of seeing marrow and being like, well, we can't go that way, so we got to find another route. We got to go through the difficult way, stuff like that. Something you mentioned a lot, Jake, during the game was your own Dragongrin. And I'm so happy that you kept mentioning it, because that's such a clutch purpose of this book, is that there's not one Dragongrin. We show you our Dragongrin, but we give you all the tools you make to make your own dark campaign setting that's gritty, overtaken, evil has won, light has fallen. and it got me thinking. Like I love Eberron. That's probably my favorite standard official D&D setting. And I love the light rail, the train. So light rail, black rail. Like I'm all aboard. Oh wow, pun intended. I wish. But it made me think, like, what is that going to be in my Dragongrin? Like mine, not the Absolute Tabletop published one, but mine. That's so fun too. And I was like, it's going to be this underground, like not an actual railroad, but like migrations of people trying to flee from certain locations and cross this horrific, awful terrain that is both sphere and sphere below, go through this tunnel. And so you'll see just all of these migrants starving, walking slowly, and then collapsing where they are, and no one helps them up because they don't have any family. Their family's laying down dead 3 miles that way, you know. And it's just, I thank you, Jake, for inspiring all that in just this session. So I'm really excited for the next one. I signed up for another one of these things. If Drake isn't back to Thought Slay us, then I'm probably going to be a little sad, but not as sad as he is. No, I'm really excited no matter what. Thanks for inviting me.
So next week is going to be interesting. We're going to be swapping some players out a little bit. Connor was signed on for 1 and 2. So because Drake is coming back and James Carney is joining us, I really want to keep you in here too, Connor.
I'm okay with that.
So I gotta think on this because, obviously I can make it work, but that means we're gonna have 6 players in here. But we're gonna be moving into something a little higher scale that I want to do, just to test out something. So I think we're gonna be be thinking about this. I think this last session is going to be a mixed bag, more heavily narrative combat, with dice rolls that will be less about to hit or not to hit, but for other narrative things, with some mechanical stuff. So we'll kind of do like a zoomed out battle thing, and then we'll zoom in to some mechanical stuff because of course we want to test out the mechanics. So yeah, we'll figure that out in the next week. So yeah, part 3 will take place on Wednesday, February, what is that, the 4th? I can't remember now. Or the 6th, I can't remember. One of those days. It's next Wednesday. And
it is the 6th.
Okay.
6.
You can see part 1 right now over on youtube.com/mini-terrain domain. This part 2 will be up on YouTube. I have to wait at least 24 hours, so it'll probably be 2 or 3 days before I get it up there. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this, for Tim, James, Matt, and Barker for letting us all play in this world, before it's fully fleshed out. And I mentioned this, Barker, in the previous game, the fact that one of the things that always stood out to me in all of the various ways in which you guys have shown us Dragongrin over the years, as it comes towards this, fully formed thing, is that phrase, your Dragongrin. And it's given me that freedom to just say, it doesn't matter what the book says. This is what this is in my world. This is what the train looks like. This is how the magic functions. This is what Cage's Reprieve is. And in my world, the Marrow apparently ride. There's a whole group of them that ride giant bats. And there's now this badass Marrow commander named Vansum Harsh that flies an albino bat. So yeah, it just gives me that freedom to do that. I love this setting. I can't wait to do some more stuff with it. But next week, we'll be back for the 3rd and final in this Blood and Vengeance. And yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us. Or if you're watching later on the YouTube, be sure to check out. In fact, I'm going to type in the chat at tab, or rather exclamation point. And there's the links to the Absolute Tabletop.com and the official Facebook group where we all like to hang out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the links to Absolute Tabletop are down in the description below. So with that, we are going to end this stream the same way we end every stream, and you can say it with me if you want. Metadeath.